From its beginning more than 65 years ago, the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce has evolved into the premier business association in the state. Today, the Kentucky Chamber represents 3,800 member businesses, from family-owned shops to Fortune 500 companies that employ over half of the Commonwealth's workforce. The Kentucky Chamber's powerful grassroots network, through a partnership with more than 80 local chambers in the state, consists of 25,000 professionals. Strength in numbers continues to help the Chamber influence policymakers in areas such as business taxation, fiscal policy, environmental and safety issues, workmen's compensation, healthcare, and education reform. Their mission is not always easy, but the Chamber continues to provide leadership as a catalyst, consensus builder, and advocate to unite business and advance Kentucky. This year has ushered in unprecedented challenges for businesses large and small. I would like to introduce to you Kate Shanks, Vice President of Public Affairs for the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce and moderator for this session. I'll turn it over to you, Kate.
Thank you, Eileen. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I got a little message saying that I couldn't be heard. And Eileen, thank you so much. That's a great introduction. I might have to take you around with me to all meetings going forward. Thank you, everyone. You've made it. I think we are the last panel of the entire conference, so we appreciate everyone sticking with us this afternoon. I think we are your lunch speakers, and that's kind of the beauty of these virtual conferences, that you can kind of follow along during your lunch break as well. And I certainly want to thank Secretary Goodman for inviting us to be a part of this program. This is a conference that I have been engaged with, for years, and we always appreciate this program. And I know during the pandemic, as we're moving into these virtual formats, it's so easy to just skip it, cancel it, and then kind of pick it back up next year. But these conversations are so important. So, just a big thank you to the Secretary and then the staff for keeping it going. And congratulations to everybody handling the IT. It's not my favorite thing to do, and I hope we will get through it without any glitches, but we will hang in there. So I have a pretty big panel today, and that's on purpose. I wanted to be sure that we had lots of good discussion and could kind of show a little bit of the diversity of our economy and how that affects our discussions on energy and environment issues. And you can see our panelists there on your screen, I believe, but we're really excited to have Chuck Sessions, Vice President, Government Affairs for Ohio and Kentucky at Duke Energy, one of my board members, Linda Rumpke, Vice President, External Customer Affairs for Columbia, David Farrar, Vice President of Operations for Kentucky America, Chad Harpole, who's Director of Government and Community Affairs at Century, another board member, and Patrick Leonard, who is Senior Project Manager for Renewable Energy Procurement at Amazon. And I have another member, I think it's going to be joining us too. We're working out the technology there. So if we get him added in, I will also welcome him to be part of the discussion. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot to talk about today, and I'm going to go ahead and start with the elephant in the room, and the one thing that has really influenced all discussions at the Kentucky Chamber since, in March, and that is to talk about the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the things I can't tell you enough how amazing the business community has been in stepping up to control the spread of the virus, and the things that they have been asked to do that they've never been asked to do before in terms of dealing with this illness. And so I want to kind of talk for just a minute, let our panelists talk a little bit about how they've responded to the pandemic and those challenges. So Chuck, I will start with you this afternoon. If you could tell us a little bit about your all's response.
Kate, I'm very sorry, but could we have all of your panelists who aren't speaking mute their microphones? We're getting some background noise. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Kate, and thanks for the opportunity to participate on the panel. At Duke Energy Kentucky, we very quickly wanted to respond to our customers and communities that were adversely impacted by the pandemic. And I'll share with you a little bit about what changed and what didn't. So first of all, just our work teams in general, working remotely for those who were doing work in customers' yards, on their premise, etc. We staggered our work shifts in terms of when we reported. We staggered how our teams worked together so that there was no cross-pollination, if you will, and utilization of equipment, trucks, material, et cetera, and minimize our customers' exposure to the virus. For our customer contact center, those folks within 1 week of us going from March 16th began to work remotely, and many of those folks are still working remotely today. For me, myself, and the government affairs team, we continue to work remotely, and we're beginning to stagger people back to their normal operations. Additionally, for our customers, in terms of the direct impact we had with them, we waived all of the disconnect notice fees, late payment fees, credit card fees, service deposits, et cetera, to further assist our customers with the burden and the toll of the pandemic. Additionally, with an organization like Northern Kentucky Horizon Fund and the Northern Kentucky Chamber, and provided over $80,000 to some of the agencies with respect to medical supplies, learning, food, et cetera, that were adversely impacted by the pandemic. We very much respect the work that those folks are doing today, and we will continue to work with them day in and day out to minimize as best we can the impact of the pandemic. Again, for those core construction services, we tried to make sure that we were there and available and flexible to our customers so that from an economic development perspective, we minimized the impact as best we could to our local customers and communities.
Thank you, Chuck. And, you know, we really appreciate you all keeping the power flowing during all of this. And, you know, on the other energy side of it, Linda, I know you have a lot of customers, a lot of businesses that you serve that have been hit hard by this. So any general thoughts that you want to share from your all's perspective on managing this crisis?
Yes, thanks, Kate, and thanks to everyone. Happy to be here representing Columbia Gas and our over 132,000 customers. Like Chuck and his company, you know, all of us were reacting based on the information we were receiving from governing bodies. So on March 11th, Columbia stood up our incident command center, which allowed us to organize and address issues facing us because of the COVID pandemic. We worked immediately to establish protocols to keep our employees and customers safe. Governor Beshear declared our employees essential workers, which allowed us to move forward in doing things such as under the emergency order, we examined our work streams like Chuck and his company did to understand what work could temporarily be suspended safely. And I believe Deputy Secretary John Lyons referred to that this morning. It allowed us to limit customer and employee interaction and contact to keep everyone safe. We implemented procedures and protocols to perform essential work safely, including understanding what kind of PPE would be required for each type of work. We limited one service technician per vehicle. We set up strict cleaning protocols and procedures. And then on the customer side, our customer interaction protocols and communications when entering the home to conduct essential and emergency work was laid out and communicated. For all of our Columbia Gas employees, we closed our facilities except for limited access for our frontline workers. And we established remote work protocols for all other employees. Like I'm sure all of the companies across the Commonwealth, we instituted the temperature checks, the health screening, the cleaning protocols for anyone who was entering our buildings. And we established those quarantine and reporting protocols per the CDC guidelines for all of our employees. But we didn't stop there. We felt that our communities had been severely impacted. So we immediately made significant philanthropic contributions to food banks, community kitchens, and senior centers across our service territory to address those basic needs that our communities were facing. We also enhanced our outreach and communication with our customers, our municipalities, and our government leaders. And Kate, just as a present status update, our incident command center remains in place, and that allows us to continue to make expedient decisions and adapt up to the ever-changing COVID environment. We all continue to work remotely, except for our frontline workers, so that's been an adjustment in itself as today. And we don't expect to be back in our building until sometime early 2021. Again, we're trying to work safely and understand the issues that this COVID environment is presenting. We're happy, and I'm knocking on my table here. We're happy to report that none of our employees have contracted COVID from our customers based on the protocols that I know our company and others have put in place, nor have our customers contracted COVID from us. So we'd like to acknowledge Governor Beshear, the Cabinet for Energy, Environment, and the Public Service Commission for their expedient actions, which have been shared over the course of the last 2 days, because it allowed us to have guidance and assistance in helping us to continue to provide essential services while keeping our customers safe.
Thank you, Linda. And I think I'll throw it to Chad, because one of the things we say at the chamber when we talk about these issues is that we're really fortunate. There's a lot of us that can work from home, but I don't know that you can run an aluminum smelter from home. So I wonder, and certainly utilities as well, Chuck, and Dave, and of course Amazon. I don't know that you could do your all's job from home. So how are you all managing right now, and in keeping up business and being able to serve your customers?
Yeah, Kate, you're exactly right. You can see my role in aluminum production since I'm clearly at home. But that being said, Century is in a very unique manufacturing position, because we can't just hit stop on the assembly line. So when COVID started and we saw where it was going, we were proactive in our approach in terms of starting temperature checks and working with the governor's office, who was extremely helpful for us in terms of making sure that aluminum production was declared an essential business in the state. So, a blessing of aluminum production is the PPE that our workers already have to wear, including full face mask and, suits, etc., just because they're around molten metal all day. So that really helped us in terms of not having to change the process or what the workers were used to doing on a daily basis. Like so many businesses, we did completely ban non-essential production employees from inside the fence, I like to say. Basically, the only folks that were coming in and out of our 2 smelters in Kentucky and our smelter in South Carolina were trucking companies bringing raw material in or taking finished product out. But from the business perspective, we were very fortunate that we have yet to have a single layoff at either one of our facilities in Kentucky due to COVID. We have about 1,200 employees in the state at our 2 smelters. All of them are still working, knock on wood. We've had an extremely low COVID result, which is very, very good. But our workers are still working every day, and we're still running full production 24/7, which is huge, because if we stop producing or stop tending the pots for 6 to 8 hours, literally that molten metal freezes up in those pots, and you've essentially shut the plant down. So we really appreciate the state, helping us at the beginning as far as the declaration for essential business, and then being able, to take the right steps. Thankfully, now looking back on it, we didn't know, no one knew at the time what was going to be right and what was going to be wrong, but it looks like, we're getting through this okay.
Great, thank you. And Dave or Patrick, anything unique about your companies and how you're responding to this, and you'd like to share to the conversation?
Yeah, I would like to just add on top of all the other comments about PPE and creating bubbles for your employees to operate safely. That's what we recognize with our production facilities. You've got licensed, trained operators that can operate these plants, and they're the only ones. So we created a bubble around those. But some of the other topics that I'm extremely proud of our company doing was a daily health screening app. So the app was developed early on and used company-wide to reinforce the best practices around staying safe, not only for our customers, but for the families of our employees. That's really meant a lot to me, and it was also a great opportunity to share that across the state along with other companies. And the last thing I would like to add is we also reached out and started talking about travel. The governors put certain states on travel restrictions, so we followed those orders and responded appropriately with our employees to keep them safe so we could continue our safe, reliable water service.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what we heard early on was just the proactive nature that companies took in responding to this outbreak. And there was so much unknown in the beginning. I mean, just think about how far we have come and what we have learned from this virus and the difference between masking versus not masking early on. And so I think for you all as individual companies to have to, navigate this in the early days, I mean, it was kind of like, what are we doing here? What's happening? And how do we quickly develop knowledge and understanding of this? And Patrick, I know your company saw a lot of work related, right? I mean, we were all shipping directly home, and so any general thoughts there? I mean, we appreciate your all's contribution to keeping us all safe at home, especially in those early days.
Yeah, I mean, we're very privileged to be growing this year, and with that comes the challenge of keeping our employees and customers safe. And so, in Kentucky, where we operate 10 sites and we're building more, we have over 14,000 full-time and part-time employees that we're responsible for, and we take that really seriously. So. I'm based in Seattle, Washington, and my team's been out the office since February. So I think similar to some of the other panelists, really being proactive and if you're not required to be at a site, don't be at a site, has been important for us. And then I think in the part of the company I work in on the energy side, we've just been really well supported by partners in industry. I've been amazed by how much we have accomplished this year through those partnerships. And so, I think all of us on the panel here would probably not believe the progress we've all made with our businesses over the last few months. And that's been amazing to witness. So definitely the passion that our employees demonstrate and the willingness to keep going has been amazing.
For sure. And I think you've shown one of the advantages of the virtual format, that you've come to us from the West Coast. So we appreciate your ability to be joining us today and adding to the conversation. So thank you for that. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about economic development in Kentucky. And then I want to have a little conversation about energy policy and kind of get into the environmental side as well. But at the Chamber, we are very much focused on economic recovery and how we rebound and how fast we can rebound from this economic crisis in addition to a health crisis. And we know there's a lot of things we can't control with the virus, and we are waiting on vaccine research and to see how that rolls out and how we can contain the virus. But there are things we can control on economic development and trying to be the best we can in terms of where businesses should locate. So Chuck, I'll just turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about how your company as a utility is involved in the economic development space in Kentucky.
Sure, thanks, Kate. So our engagement in the economic development space is really with two groups primarily in the local communities. One we call the LEDOs, the local economic development organizations, and then the REDOs, the regional economic development organizations, as well as we partner with the economic development cabinet at the state, the Kentucky Association of Economic Development. And as those groups get requests from customers, either existing customers wanting to expand in our service territory or new customers wanting to relocate to the Commonwealth, we very quickly try to respond to our ability to provide them with the capacity, either on the gas or the electric side, that they need, as well as any generation needs that may come into play. What we know today is that 40 to 45% of all new business and industry coming into the state or looking to relocate have sustainability goals. And so our role from an economic development perspective is, one, at determining what our capacity is or is not to serve that need, serve that load. And two, if we don't have it, what the timeline is to put ourselves in a position to be able to serve that load. I think additionally, for the pandemic, we partnered with the Northern Kentucky Chamber and tried to identify veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and minority-owned businesses, and working with them, donated money upwards of $200,000 to assist some of those businesses and agencies as they transitioned and trying to recover and get through the pandemic. I think additionally, it's critically important that in Kentucky, we have an environment where our rates are low and they're competitive, and we want to continue to keep them in that space so that we continue to recruit new business and industry. I want folks coming to the Commonwealth, not running away. So again, a strong partnership with the existing economic development infrastructure that's in place. And again, working collaboratively on being creative to come up with new solutions and problem solving to make sure that those customers stay here and that they have a good experience in the Commonwealth.
You know, I think it's interesting you use the term problem solving. I mean, that's exactly what we're doing every day in this pandemic. But even when we're not in a crisis like this one, I mean, the needs of small businesses are different than the needs of others, and especially with minority-owned business, veteran-owned business, women-owned business. And so I think just having that awareness as a company is so important so that we can be identifying those challenges and addressing them for sure. And we've learned with the pandemic, it doesn't hit every business the same way. It's very unfair. We've seen some that have grown and some that have really just struggled and are hanging on or have already gone under. And so, you know, I think just having that engagement is so important. You know, Linda, I know you all have a similar role as a utility as well. I mean, just general thoughts, especially on how you serve small businesses.
Yeah, thank you. And I think Chuck articulated it well. You know, Columbia is continuing to work to provide all of our customers, including small businesses, with those resources and tools to navigate through the challenges that we've been presented. One of the things that sticks out for me is just putting together flexible payment plans for all of our customers, but particularly if you think about small businesses, they probably accumulated arrearages. I'm thinking about our restaurants in particular who are actually shut down for a long period of time, but they're big natural gas users with respect to their businesses, you know, in their kitchens. And so working with them to provide these flexible payment plans was essential. We also utilize, much like Duke Energy, we utilize our customer relationship managers to make sure that these customers were aware of the state and federal programs that were being made available, you know, the PPP, the access to the PPE, and the other programs that focus on the small business community. And many thanks to Kentucky Chamber and all the other local chambers that really stepped up and provided those resources. So we tried to act as that connector between our customers and the chambers and resources. And, you know, Kate, you and I talked about why economic growth is so vital for our Commonwealth so that we can continue to remain strong and healthy. And to Chuck's point, you know, we need to continue to attract small businesses to Kentucky because it allows us to spread the cost of our essential utility services across a larger customer base, which allows us to keep our rates affordable. And I know Ashley Runyon referred to that this morning, that affordability is going to be the key to healthy economy and healthy communities. And so positioning Kentucky to continue to attract those visionary businesses that Governor Beshear talked about yesterday is really going to be critical for our future viability. And that's why Columbia Gas, Duke, all of these utilities continue to support those state and local economic development organizations and associations. And the strategic partners those partners have really led to some significant projects relocating just prior to the pandemic, as well as positioning our state for future opportunities. You know, currently we're engaged with the Economic Development Cabinet and the Public Service Commission to identify sites where, for example, natural gas might be lacking. And so now we can utilize recently authorized commission tools to advance natural gas to those sites and make them viable. And that certainly broadens the availability across the Commonwealth and our appeal to potential relocations. So Kate, it's work like that needs to continue so that even during this pandemic, we're continuing to move the Commonwealth forward.
Linda, that's an excellent point. And, you know, you will hear the chamber talk a lot about competitiveness and how Kentucky can outcompete other states in terms of attracting business here. We're a manufacturing state, we're a logistics state. We are known for having a lot of qualities that are so important to attracting business here. And so, you know, I think making sure that this pandemic doesn't set us back in our attempts and work towards being more competitive, it's going to be important. I kind of like to think of us as sort of leapfrogging other states that maybe stall out a little bit because of the pandemic, and making sure that we're continuing forward. And one of those areas, Dave, is in water and wastewater infrastructure. It's not a day that goes by that we don't talk infrastructure at the chamber. It's one of our top priorities for the 2021 session. And there's lots of different components. It's transportation, it's broadband, but it's water and wastewater. And we poll our members regularly every year on a variety of issues, just to make sure that we can make our policies are in line with our membership. We're a membership-driven organization, and water and wastewater capacity is always something big. You can't expand your business and you can't utilize one of these new sites if you're at capacity, and you can't tap on. So thoughts policy-wise on how we can be, you know, top of the states in how we're handling water and wastewater issues.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. So for us, that would be valuation reform. So across the Commonwealth, you can imagine during the COVID period, you've got diminishing tax bases, you've got escalating pension costs, road needs, bridge needs, and then you take those and you throw on the task of financing water and wastewater system improvements to meet compliance. You know, it's a huge monumental task. And what we're looking at is legislation for the consolidation. You know, this legislation would provide clear guidelines and rules for professional water companies like us to acquire a water and wastewater system, so that municipality or water district could expand. The current method doesn't do that, and you can see through the Commonwealth we're falling behind in those infrastructure needs. You know, for us, we can attract that capital, and really now more than ever, Kentucky communities across the Commonwealth need more options for the infrastructure investment. And water is one of those, and we believe that modernizing water and wastewater system laws is a great step in that direction. So that's what Kentucky American Water is looking at.
Yeah, and looking at Chad's background, I know you're a railroad guy, so you're certainly an infrastructure guy to talk to. You know, how important is it for your business in dealing with those particular issues in terms of Kentucky's competitiveness and how we are as a state for manufacturing when you think about infrastructure in general?
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the best things about Kentucky as far as COVID recovery is the infrastructure is already in place. I mean, that's not going to change simply because of the COVID virus. The same way with, you know, low cost electricity and most importantly for the aluminum industry, reliability in terms of transmission lines, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, infrastructure is huge for our industry. We use, you know, basically everything but air transportation. All of our raw material, our bauxite, comes in via barge. All of our pitch that we add to the bauxite, it comes in via rail, and we use a combination of all three to send out the finished goods as well. So, you know, infrastructure is absolutely critical. You know, similar to the logistics industry, the aluminum industry is in Kentucky for a variety of reasons, and one of those is the logistics side of things. You know, you have Century making the primary raw material. I like to say we make the uncut moonshine that we send down the pipe to Logan Aluminum or the folks in Bowling Green to turn into some other type of aluminum product. So, you know, basically it's a domino effect in terms of industry, but luckily the logistics, again, they're not going to change. The infrastructure is in place. It's just how are we going to maintain that infrastructure moving forward? And I know The chamber is leading on that effort, thankfully, because the road fund, people aren't traveling, the gas fund is dwindling. So there are some concerns and some issues that definitely need to be addressed in upcoming sessions related to that. But as far as Kentucky's competitive advantage with infrastructure, electric prices, I should say utility prices in general, with the water folks on the line, and then our workforce is getting better. We're doing everything there, and we just got to keep that momentum moving forward, and let folks know that just because the pandemic, that the core reasons, the economic development reasons to be in Kentucky have not changed.
For sure, that's helpful. And I want to switch gears a little bit and talk energy policy. And Patrick, I know there's a lot that your company is focusing on. And whenever I talk energy from the perspective of the chamber, I always talk about manufacturing, logistics, or agriculture, what our economy looks like, how important it is to have affordable, reliable energy in Kentucky, but that we have a lot of companies locating here that already are here that have corporate goals related to climate change, sustainability, renewable energy, waste reduction. And so, Patrick, I want to hear a little bit from you about, tell us about your all's goals and specifically what you're working on at your company related to energy, renewable, and climate change.
Yeah, happy to. And Kentucky's kind of a great example of how those goals go from talk to action, I think. So the main kind of North Star goal we have is our climate pledge, where we've pledged to be net zero carbon emissions across all our business by 2040. And essentially that meets the Paris Climate Agreement 10 years ahead of time. So we know that we need to be aggressive in decarbonizing our business. And so if you look at Kentucky, where we have 10 fulfillment centers, we have the air hub at CVG, which is a big air logistics site. And obviously we have our vans driving around in most neighborhoods across the Commonwealth. We need to take carbon out of all those components of the business. And so some of the moves we've announced over the last year, investing in 100,000 electric vehicles, will help with the delivery side. So we'll move away from gas and diesel, and we'll move towards electric vehicles. Well, then that means we're going to need more infrastructure because those vehicles have to charge. We need rates that reflect when you're charging electric vehicles in the state. We at CVG are opening a massive facility, and so we've been working closely with Duke on planning for the facility and making sure there's sufficient electrical capacity there. And part of that is also making sure that we have renewable energy for the site. And so a couple of ways that's in the Commonwealth. One is finding a way to generate renewable energy at the CVG site. So we're working on rooftop solar program there. We have about 60 rooftop solar projects that we've already installed. So it's a technology we're very familiar with, and many of our fulfillment centers in the US have it. And so we're excited to bring that system to fruition next year at the Air Hub. But then that doesn't get us all the way to our goal because we're constrained by the size of the roof, and especially at an airport, there are some safety limits on how big the system can be and where it can be. So a lot of my team's work focuses on off-site renewable energy, large wind and solar farms where we interconnect directly to the grid and we sell energy into the wholesale market. And we're very active in the PJM market, in Kentucky, proximate to Kentucky. And so for us, partnerships on the private side with developers who are building those systems is important. And then also on the public side, the utilities that often integrate those resources into their system. And so this year we've been very focused on Kentucky and the surrounding states, and excited to make some big moves there over the coming months.
Just a follow-up, what kind of challenges are you facing as you work to meet these goals?
Some of the macro challenges are just the scale of the ambition that Amazon has. So our goal to be 100% renewable energy used to have a 2030 timestamp, and this year in the second quarter we moved that up 5 years to 2025. So despite being in a pandemic, we got the order to go faster. And we are going to invest billions of dollars in new renewable energy facilities. So one of the challenges just is finding the right partners to meet the scale of our ambition. And I think for states and counties that have appetite to host those systems, we're ready. We're ready. We're contracting, and we're excited to see them come online. And then the other side, more kind of at the regional scale, would be are the locations where we want to site those systems ready? Do they have the permitting folks in place that understand these systems and know where's a good location and where's a not optimal location to put them? And with everyone, being out of office in some shape or form, is the permit office even open? And so I think there's some of the challenges that we're working through this year. Are there enough partners to scale quickly? And then also when we sign contracts and the partners are lining up financing, how do we work with permitting authorities in different jurisdictions to make sure they're comfortable with the plans that we have in place?
It must take a full team to manage all of those different moving parts. So it's quite a commitment, and interesting. And Chad, I'll throw it back to you on some other perspectives on energy and how your company looks at that particular issue.
Yeah, energy is by far our largest cost of production. It makes up about 40% of every dollar of production for Century Aluminum. So, we are by far, second place is way into last week in terms of the amount of energy we use every day. We use more than anybody else in the state between our two smelters. Both smelters use about the same amount of electricity as the city of Lexington per day, 24/7, 365. So, energy production, energy cost is just a huge part of aluminum smelting, and that's just all there is to it. So, in addition to the actual cost, the transmission, as I've mentioned earlier, we cannot lose power at our facilities via man-made or natural disaster for more than 6 hours, or both plants or one of the plants is in serious jeopardy of closure because of the metal basically locking up. So, the cost, we were very fortunate several years ago to be able, through the PSC and the state, to work with Big Rivers and to be able to go on the open market and purchase our power through MISO on a daily basis. And that our CEO has said over and over again, and it's very true. When I started with this company right at 6 years ago, there were 8 smelters in the United States, including the 2 in Kentucky. Today, there are 5 smelters in the United States, with Seabury, our smelter just south of Henderson, being the only smelter running at full capacity. Hallsville is on the way back up, getting ready to run close to full capacity. But that being said, the reason of the loss of production is trade with China, and then secondly, energy cost in other portions of the country. So if we had not been able to access the open market power and get those open market power rates, both of the plants in Kentucky would definitely be closed today. So we're very appreciative of that. And we're constantly working on the transmission piece and making sure that the reliability is there moving forward to keep aluminum production here.
Yeah, and I think that's important to point out. You all are part of a global marketplace, right? So you have so many different pressures on you. Chuck, I'll throw it to you. I think we've heard from a couple different perspectives on this as a utility. How do you balance this in Kentucky? And, I'll say I think our economy, the diversity of our economy is a strength, but it certainly can create challenges for how we handle energy policy and talk about energy policy. So how does your company manage those differences?
Sure, thanks, Kate. I think a couple of things. One, in September of last year, Duke Energy announced that we were going to reduce our carbon footprint across our jurisdictions by 50% from what the 2005 levels were. And again, that's across all of our footprints, and that by 2050, we would be net zero with respect to our carbon footprint across our footprint. Additionally, just last week, we announced another methane gas reduction in terms of our carbon footprint as well. So I think for us, the challenge then becomes making sure that we are aware of the constant change in the demand and the requirements by our customers, yet making sure that we balance that demand and those sustainability goals with making sure that we provide a cost-effective environment and a balanced environment for all of our customers. For Kentucky in 2017, we began to have 3 solar facilities that are operational that today provide electric service to 1,300 of our customers on an annual basis. If you think back to 2014, probably folks wouldn't have thought about Duke Energy as having any solar facilities in the Commonwealth. That coupled along with our East Bend facility, as well as our Woodsdale facility, we're always looking for opportunities to be creative to balance our generation portfolio to meet the needs and the expectations of our customers. When I think of our business really from the 3 C's, customers, communities, and the Commonwealth for our DEK business. And the collaborative approach, the tools that Linda mentioned earlier that the Commission has made available for us to, again, provide a balanced portfolio and more options for our customers from an economic development perspective are critically important. And without those 3 C's for our DEK business, customers, communities, and the Commonwealth in general, there's no reason for us to be here. So just a constant awareness and a connectivity with our customers on what those business needs are or not, and how we can work collaboratively to be creative to generate more of those solutions, as well as not forgetting our core customers that are already here and may want to expand or do something differently. That balanced approach is critically important. I think the other thing that I would mention when we talk about customers, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, but when I think about social justice, we talk about economic development and making sure that customers are able to transition out of the pandemic and continue to thrive and make sure that the Commonwealth is a place where folks want to live, work, and play. We committed to $1 million to social justice and racial equity issues across our footprint, and about 200,000 of that for our DEK business. So I think that's an important part of the mix as well. If you're not connected to your customers, if you're not aware of what those business needs are, and you just put your head in the sand, then you won't last very long. So I think the collaborative approach and the one that allows us to work, again, collectively with all of our customers, all of the agencies from Frankfurt back to home, are critically important for how we recover today and how we provide safe, reliable, and affordable service for our customers moving forward.
Thank you. And it's certainly something in your neck of the woods that I think you've gotten a lot of experience on. You've had some great economic development in your service territory. And, that's certainly what we want to focus on, is how we can keep that going as we come out of the pandemic. And Linda, I'll throw it to you. Our electricity mix has changed quite a bit over the last few years, and you've seen more natural gas for electricity generation. And of course, you serve direct customers. So just any thoughts on policy that your industry is watching, maybe at the federal, state, even local level, and how that's playing into your all's decisions right now?
Yeah, thanks, Kate. And, as I was listening to Chad and Patrick, obviously Kentucky has an energy-intensive economy. Kentucky's, I think, top 15, among the top 15 states that use the most energy in producing the GDP. So, you know, with the industrial sector accounting for about a third of the overall energy use, our location and our low energy prices have really driven manufacturers to consider us as a primary site for locating their companies. And natural gas has been a big part of that because it is a key resource for Kentucky's manufacturing sector. So as we've been thinking about what legislation or what do we need to be thinking about as utilities to support that effort, I think maintaining energy choice is going to be essential for Kentucky's economic health and viability. I know we're currently seeing bans of certain types of energy in other states or municipalities in particular. And we believe ensuring that all energy resources remain available for not only our current customers, but future business and residential customers is essential. You know, affordable energy is the reason, as I said, we're able to attract, maintain, and grow Kentucky's economy, and it does benefit all sectors of our communities. And so Kentucky as a state should be afforded the opportunity to set their energy platform, as Secretary Goodman discussed yesterday, so that it benefits the entire Commonwealth. So we're really looking at legislation to maintain choice, because we think that choice of energy allows us to keep that low cost, to Chad's point, it's such a huge component of the overall business. And so for that type of legislative, I guess, legislation that's being considered, we think that Kentucky as a state needs to look at it across the Commonwealth. And so we're going to be watching closely what can be brought forward to ensure that we can make decisions on behalf of what's best for our state and best for the communities and customers that we serve across the Commonwealth.
Thank you, Linda. And, you know, we're always watching trends that we see in other states and other regions and trying to kind of get a good handle on how that'll affect Kentucky. So we're glad you all are involved in that. Let's talk a little bit about environmental regulation.
Before you start, we are at time.
Oh, all righty. Have we gone over? My apologies.
You have, but that's all right, not by much.
Well, I guess I will go ahead and wrap it there. So, you know, I just want to thank you again, Secretary Goodman and Energy and Environment Cabinet folks that have worked on this program. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to be a part of the discussion today. So thank you to my panelists. I think we had some really great conversation, and, you know, we look forward to working with the Cabinet as we carry out our policy agenda and continue our path towards recovery. So thank you to everyone and have a great day.